curiosity that, oh, that's the kid that was hit by the car. And the coolest thing happened. I couldn't take gym. I couldn't take gym classes and phys ed and all that kind of stuff because I was all busted up. So I got 2 art classes. I got to take grade 8 art and grade 9 art because I asked if I could, and they said, yeah, I guess so. And so that was, I mean, that was some kind of a sign. That was some kind of incredible, you know, providence that suddenly I was able to take twice the amount of art, and I started playing guitar. I really hardly ever played hockey again. I went from being a jock to being an artist, right, overnight. And it was, you know, you could say, yeah, it's a real drag to get hit by a car, but it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. Really, you know. Like did the world need another Sidney Crosby? I don't know. But, you know, I'm glad I do what I do. I really am glad I do what I do, and it's been such a different track. And that led to my high school art teacher was kind of blown away by my drawing and everything. She admitted that she thought I was a better artist than her. And so she really encouraged me, and she started bringing in animated films from the National Film Board to show me, to inspire me. And this was a real moment of inspiration, was when I saw Ryan Larkin. How many of you know who Ryan Larkin is? And have you seen the film Ryan, perhaps? It's a documentary of his life. Anyways, he did a film called Walking, which is mostly pen and ink, pencil drawings on paper, and watercolor on paper. And when I saw Walking, that really hit me, because Fantasia was great, but I didn't know how on earth I was ever going to create something like Fantasia. I did watch the little Disney documentaries, and I knew that they had like 400 people working around the clock, and they had huge big camera things, and it was very complicated. But when I saw Walking, when I saw this short film called Walking, which was nominated for an Oscar that year, it was an amazing film. It was just drawn on paper. It looked like my drawings, and I realized that's something I could do. And I told my teacher, you know, I want to be an animator, I want to learn animation. And the next little miracle that happened, when I got to grade 11 in high school, I had an English teacher that hated my guts. And I hated his guts, because I thought I was smarter than him, and I stick to that. I think I was quite a bit smarter than my grade 11 English teacher. And I used to tell him so in the class, in front of all the other students. And so he flunked me. I didn't graduate high school because of this one English teacher. But my art teacher went to the dean at the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts School of Art and Design and implored him to let me get into this college program. And the guy did. He actually did. I actually got into college without graduating high school, which is really strange. That's just not supposed to happen, but it did. So, which was just another little magical step along the way. So I ended up as an animation student at the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts School of Art and Design. It's a great big long name for a really tiny little school that had very rudimentary equipment. We had one 16mm camera, and that was used for everything. It was the only camera in the school. So if you wanted to shoot a pencil test, that's what you used, and that's what you shot your final film on. And if you wanted to go out and shoot some reference, you had to take it down off the mounting and sign it out. And you know, that was the one tool that we had at that art school. And at that point, my father was not supportive of my career. His take on it was, if you don't learn a trade and cut off that hair, you're never going to amount to anything. Like you're going to make a living making cartoons, like you poor, naive, silly little boy. You have no idea what you're doing. You know, you need a trade, you need to cut your hair, you need to get serious about life. Like, come on, who are you kidding, right? But I was determined, I was extremely determined, and I stuck with it. And so, yeah, here we go. I was still in art school, and I actually got a couple of jobs in a local studio, a studio called DISATA, which stood for Disney of Canada. And it was a really terrible little studio, but I already actually got a little work experience. And then I had a scholarship for my 3rd year at the animation school. I had done so well, they had awarded me a scholarship, and I was all excited about it. But then in August, I was watching TV with the family, and here was a story on the news saying that the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts School of Art and Design is closing down because they have no money. And I remember they had just rebuilt a big wing on the museum the year before and spent a few $1 million, so it made sense they had no money left over for the art school because they built this big fancy wing. But anyways, I heard about it on TV before I heard it, before they had contacted us and said, sorry, no school this year. But I called one of my animation teachers, and she said, well, why don't you take your portfolio to the National Film Board and see if you can get a job? And I walked into the National Film Board, I was just barely turned 18, and with my portfolio, and this guy named Ron Tunis, who's an amazing director, just hired me on the spot. And again, it's the timing, he literally said, when can you start? I said, I'll start today, And so there I was, 18 years old. 2 weeks later, I have my first paycheck. It has a maple leaf on it, just like an unemployment check, right? Because it's from the Canadian government. And I get to show my dad. I got hair down to here, and I got a paycheck. They are paying me to draw pictures. They're paying me to make cartoons, right? So the magic is unfolding. It's like I have a good job. I mean, at the time, the money today would be laughable, but at the time the money was really, really great. It was wonderful. From the National Film Board, it's kind of a long story and I don't have enough time, so I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit, but I ended up working in 1980 on a movie called Heavy Metal the movie. Which was a big feature film. And that was a real turn in my career. That's when I really started to get interested in special effects and excel at special effects. And special effects became my thing in 1980. So from 1980 on, that's all I really specialized in. Although I directed TV commercials throughout the 80s. I did all kinds of cartoon animation, stop motion, plasticine animation, cutout animation. You name it, I've done it at some point or another in my career. And I just had a blast, like bouncing from style to style, and getting to play and try everything out. But here I was 1980, well, do the math, I'm 22 years old, and 10 years earlier I was like, I want to do animation and I want to make music. And when the Heavy Metal movie was over, my band played at the Rat Party. Actually played at the Rat Party, and we changed our name from Dark Horse to the Heavy Metal Blues Band. And so here I was working on this major motion picture, animated motion picture, a science fiction movie with all kinds of, it was considered a visionary film at the time, although it's very dated today, and it's really a piece of poo, but a very interesting film. And, but there I was, like, living my dream, like, unbelievably, I was just in Germany, and just to kind of, I really like to talk about the synchronicity and the relationships that we make that pop up again and again. The director of the sequence we worked on Heavy Metal was a guy named John Bruno. 15 years later, I'm watching a documentary about the making of, or more than that, many years later, the documentary making of Titanic. And there's James Cameron in this Russian submarine going down to look at the Titanic, and the guy next to him is John Bruno. I'm like, that's the guy I worked with on the Heavy Metal movie in Montreal. And a month ago I was in Germany doing a big conference called FMX, and there's John Bruno. I'm like, John, he's like, Joe? And it's, this is like 30 years later or something like that, and he's James Cameron's right-hand man working on Avatar. And like, how bloody cool is that? And what did you do with your career? Well, I was the head of effects at Walt Disney feature animation. So it's kind of like, isn't that cool, And we both laughed about the fact that we get to do these incredible things just because we like animation. That's all That's the common denominator. And you know, it's our dreams are coming true, you know, absolutely. So, my career path unfolded like in just, I was doing a workshop a couple of days ago, and I was telling the students that after a certain point, which was around the, when I got a job with Don Bluth in Los Angeles, from that point on, I never even had a demo reel. I never even tried to get the next job. The next job was always just there waiting, and all they needed to hear from my last boss was hire this guy. And I just went from job to job. It was like it was actually almost effortless. But I say this with, I want to, you know, make a caveat that if you're getting into the animation industry, it's not effortless. And I don't want to say that